Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 3. Today we're going to be doing my episode 1 review / breakdown. This was the premiere episode, so obviously it's a huge deal, so please stick around throughout the entire video because I really enjoyed this episode and there was lots of twists and turns, especially teasing what's to come in terms of the villains and some mysteries that have been set up at the end of this episode. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay, so it must be noted that Tom Cavanagh from The Flash directed this episode and he did a great job. This was a 9 out of 10 episode. Everything was great. Like, I literally have barely any complaints at all, and that is rare. So big up to Tom Cavanagh and Superman Lois for being this good. But let's get into this, and we're going to go through this episode chronologically, so bear with me. We will get to the very exciting bits, but we'll just get to it bit by bit, so hang around as I go through this. So the beginning of the episode begins as Lois has a monologue and she establishes it's like 20 plus days later. We have like a montage of different people from the show doing different things. You have John Henry Irons with Natalie. We have Clark and Lois going at it, being very happy with, you know, where they're at. Also, Clark is at the Gazette that was teased at the end of last season, and she talks about what's become clear is that all of us around the globe have become closer, and that's just obviously after the life-changing and world-shattering events that happened at the end of last season with Ali Alston. And so yeah, this is the new season, this is how it sets up, and I think it's the perfect way to introduce the new season. And so it's revealed at this point that Lois is going to go to Metropolis with Bruno Mannheim. She's fully into this investigation and she's making it her main target to go after Bruno Mannheim finally. And it's also established that Clark and Lois have gone after Bruno Mannheim in the past whilst they were living in Metropolis, but it was nearly impossible to get anything on the man. And so Clark and Jordan fly. This is the first look at Jordan in this new season. Obviously he's training to become Superboy and he's given some autonomy by his dad, although he does break that later when he goes off to Malaysia where a crane has fallen down and Clark gets mad with him because he disobeyed his order to just fly back home. And obviously he gave him that trust that, oh, you can fly home by yourself and I trust you to do that. But then he went to an entirely different country to try and save the day when, you know, Superman would have been notified about that and he could have done it himself, or they could have gone together rather than Superman showing up and finding Jordan there and everything is in absolute chaos. So we get a new look at the new Jonathan as he and Lois drive in his new car. So this is very exciting to see this new Jonathan. I have to say he fits in perfectly. Not even for a second did I doubt that he was Jonathan, and that's obviously a big thanks to the actor but also the show, because I feel like Tom Cavanagh did such a good job of directing this episode, and just overall the show always is amazing with the writing, so it feels like Jonathan. So yeah, no doubts here. I'm very happy with this new Jonathan. Okay, so we go over to Lana. So we're just like one by one catching up with what everyone's doing at this present time in the present day. Lana hasn't signed the divorce papers with Kyle. This is finished off at the end of the episode as she actually hands him the divorce papers, but it's like in the middle of a really awkward moment because actually after the boy's birthday, which we'll get to in a minute, which is like a really good scene, Chrissy and Kyle sleep together. So that was something that was like, is this happening when they interacted in the episode? And it literally happened and I was like, oh my god. Then the divorce papers came, so obviously that's quite peak for Kyle. However, it was inevitable at this point because the lawyers were calling. But getting into the Lois Lane and Bruno Mannheim of it all, we have original John Henry Irons, whose sister shows up in this episode. So things are getting interesting because we got references to the John Henry Irons of Superman and Lois' Earth in the past, but now we're actually getting into it. And so he took military service, and when he came out of it, he abused his power, selling tech to Lex Luthor and Bruno Mannheim. That is the first name drop of Lex in the show in this specific season. Obviously, we know Lex is coming, and we've had a first look at him. That is something that is obviously very exciting. You can see on the screen right here, this is the new Lex Luthor. He looks like a very different Lex Luthor, but I look forward to seeing him. And also the reference of Bruno Mannheim. So you know they are very high in terms of their tech. They've got great technology, especially thanks to John Henry Irons. But his sister was never impressed by this, because even though maybe he was making some money, he ended up getting killed for it. And so something apparently changed within him after he came back from military service. So that makes you wonder what actually caused him to be killed. Well, it's probably something to do with Bruno Mannheim, because he is a villain. He is the main villain of the season, and we're going to get more into this, that's for sure. So Jordan in the next scene is friend zoned by Sarah, and I was like, oh my god, I feel so bad for Jordan. But at the same time, I understand Sarah. She's been through a lot, and it's just like a decision that she has to make. But yeah, I really feel bad for Jordan. Alright, let's go back to Lois, because she's in this whole different world at this point, because after she visited John Henry Irons' sister, who is a doctor, she found out that she may be pregnant. And so she reveals to Clark, and he's really surprised. Like, he was not expecting that at all, even though they are having a great time together and they're very happy. But are they ready for it? Are they ready for another kid? That is the question that they talk about throughout this whole episode. And they come to a conclusion that yes, they are ready. They would love to have a new child. We'll get back into this in a minute, because there is more as we head towards the end of the episode. But we got a couple of things to break down first. So we have Jordan and Jonathan, the new Jonathan, who are talking. And once again, I just don't feel like he was ever recast. Like, it feels like Jonathan to me. Yes, you can clearly see he doesn't look like Jordan Elsas, but he feels like Jonathan at his core. And so I love this new Jonathan. I'm very happy that they went with him at the end of the day. And so in terms of Lois and the baby potentially coming, Lana and Lois meet up after work, and it's very nice. Like, I love this scene. It made me smile, because Lana and Lois were just like talking about having babies, and the fact that Lois actually wants to have a baby. And that's obviously great for Lois, but in terms of TV shows, obviously people get red flags popping up as soon as anyone announces a pregnancy. Just look at The Flash with Iris about to have a baby, and even baby Jenna on The Flash. Like, you only just saw her at this point because she's grown up a bit. It's just notoriously hard to actually have babies on the show, so definitely red flags are popping up about what they might potentially do with the baby. Like, is it actually going to be a real thing? Nothing's been confirmed at this point, by the way. And so before Jonathan and Jordan's joint birthday party, we have Jonathan who passes his driving test with his old coach, which is really funny, and it's interesting to see that the coach is now a test driver, and he's the one to actually give Jonathan the test, and he does pass it. And obviously this is a big thing for him as a 16-year-old teenager in America. Cars are a huge thing. Yes, it's not the same worldwide, but it is for Americans. And so let's skip forward a bit as we get into the juicy bits of this episode. So Henry Miller returns as Atom Man. Now, this was something we expected, but he came back in a very chaotic way. There's fire all around Metropolis. Superman realizes that he's back, and so he goes over to Metropolis, zips over there, and somehow he has powers. He has become a meta-human. So Superman fights Atom Man in what is one of the best looking action scenes that I think the Arrowverse has produced in a long time. The CGI is insane. The fight looks amazing. The cinematography is beautiful as they fight across literally the whole city, until Superman puts Atom Man on the edge of like some construction. And it's at that point that we get this kind of looming shot from behind him, and you're thinking, what is going on? Like, something greater is happening. And so he says, they are coming for me. And clearly Atom Man is scared, and he says, I have to finish this first. Well, Superman asks how he has powers, and that is obviously not answered, but that is the mystery. Who is Atom Man working for? Who is he scared of, and why are they coming for him? Clearly there are other forces at play, and this obviously gets to Superman's mind as Atom Man drags him to another location where they fight it out once again for the very last time. And at this location, Atom Man is riddled by bullets, and you're like, what the hell just happened there? Like, it was completely out of nowhere. Atom Man is killed. He's dead. He's on the ground, but his body has no bullets in it. So you're like, what is going on? And then you see this dark kind of demogorgon-like figure in the background just looming there, and you're like, who the hell is that? And so I quickly realized, thanks to Flashverse, who I was watching the episode with, that this is the Arrow villain from the comics, Onomatopoeia. In the comics, he is a serial killer. Now, he's clearly a big part of this season, and that is because of his links to Bruno Mannheim. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing this Onomatopoeia character, because he's actually a serial killer. Like, this is going to be an ongoing thing, that people are going to be dying around the city, potentially people with powers. And so this was undoubtedly one of the most shocking and best scenes of the entire Arrowverse this season. Like, in terms of the Flash and Superman Lois, it was just such a shocking scene. Wasn't expecting that. And my reaction was, what the hell just happened? And so Superman zips up into the air as he frantically searches around the city before arriving in the suicide slums of Metropolis. Clearly this is going to be something that we're going to get more into, probably going to revisit these slums of Metropolis sometime very soon. This is somehow linked into Bruno Mannheim and Onomatopoeia and what's going on with that. But yeah, what a way to introduce a new villain. I just have to say that. Like, it's just amazing what they've done. And so Clark and Lois, in the next scene preceding this, miss having little ones in the house. They tease the kids about their birthday party. Obviously the birthday party, lots of stuff happened to do with Sarah and Jordan not being together, but also Chrissy and Kyle getting together, Jonathan flexing with his new friends about his new car. It's interesting that Jonathan's girlfriend wasn't recast. I don't know why, but I was kind of expecting her to be recast as well, but she's the same, so that pretty much just like continues the continuity despite Jonathan being new. But like I said before, we go to Chrissy, who wakes up the next day having slept with Kyle, and she is freaking out, like totally freaking out. And it was a great funny scene. I really enjoyed it. But it's at that point that Lana shows up with the divorce papers, so it's kind of bad for Kyle. So I'm kind of liking all of these stories right now, but the most interesting story has to be what is going on with Lois right now, to do with her pregnancy and what are her symptoms, plus also the Bruno Mannheim of it all. So as Chrissy arrives at the Smallville Gazette, Lois reveals that Harry Miller was released from prison 3 months ago because of a brain tumor. However, he was literally only given weeks to live, and somehow he's been alive all of this time, and the question is, where has he been? So clearly, with Superman's confrontation with the man himself and the mystery of his death and the way that his body literally just disappeared out of nowhere, the Smallville Gazette team are going to be on this, trying to figure out exactly what's going on about this kind of conspiracy and trying to link it to Bruno Mannheim. But out of nowhere, Dr. Irons calls on the phone, and you have to remember, Clark and Lois at this point have revealed to themselves and to each other that they are ready to have a new baby. But Dr. Irons rules out a pregnancy. So Lois is in fact not pregnant, which I was kind of low-key expecting, because like I said, red flags around babies being in shows, but at the same time I was so happy for them. They seemed so happy and excited that I feel like a little bit disappointed by it. But it's an interesting twist, because Lois's problems need more testing, so it makes you question what's going on. Flashverse pointed out something very interesting. What happens if it's somehow Lois gaining powers or something? There's something changing within inside of her, or is it more simple? She's got some sort of like illness that is going on that she is unaware of. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But this is a very interesting part of Lois's story that they've set up. The final scene of the episode is of Bruno Mannheim. We get his first look. Obviously you will recognize him. The actor was in Arrow as Tobias Church. He was a big character, so I'm sure most of you guys remember him. But anyway, he is here. Obviously that's a retcon of Arrow, because this is him playing Bruno Mannheim. He is in this kind of lab with a doctor, but also Atom Man, who is there lying dead on a table alongside Onomatopoeia lurking in the darkness. And so they attempt to bring Atom Man back from the dead, and so they are actually successful after a couple of attempts. So the question is, why were they so desperate to get his body back and bring him back alive? There is clearly something going on here that is the greater mystery about why he was given powers. They probably gave him powers in the first place, but why do they need him back alive? So it's at this point that Bruno Mannheim says, just like I told you, we're getting closer. But closer to what is the question? And so are they potentially using him to replicate his powers? Is that the reason? Could Lex be sick? Could it be something similar to Supergirl? Or is Bruno sick? Or does one of them basically want to get powers? That is definitely an option. Or is this going to be some sort of cure to someone being ill? So, you know, there are many theories that we can talk about in regards to this, but I thought it was such a great way to end the episode and introduce Bruno Mannheim alongside the very ominous onomatopoeia. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this review / breakdown of Superman and Lois Season 3 Episode 1, aka the premiere episode. I really enjoyed it. Like I said before, this is a 9 out of 10 episode, really solid, so I look forward to next week. But before this video ends, I want to remind you guys I'm going to have a Gotham Knights premiere video out tomorrow, going to be a review / breakdown of the episode of the most interesting bits, so if you're interested in that, let me know down in the comments below. Also, The Flash is returning tomorrow night, plus we have a live stream. There is so much that is going on, so please be sure to stay active. It's imperative that you turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. So that does it. Please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Really helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Like I said, we're uploading daily, so stay active, and you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.